Want to start?
Yes.
And surpassed,
Penetrating and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to, remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's teachings. In Buddhism, when practitioners share their understandings of the teachings and practice, it's offered on the basis of dana paramita. Dana meaning a Pali word for generosity, or to give freely without expectation or anything in return when the opportunity arises. And those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a dana basis, and you can support their practice by giving what you can. Our speaker today, Liliane, has very graciously offered her dana back to Great Tree. So you can go to the greattreetemple.org website and click on the giving button in the upper right corner. Our speaker today is Dr. Liliane Myoren Papin. Liliane is a Franco-American writer and teacher of Chinese medicine, which she describes as an ecological medicine particularly suited to our times. She practices and teaches acupuncture, herbology, qigong, and dietary therapy. Her books are The Treasures of Chinese Medicine for Today's World, The Great Book of Daoist Medicine, Immunity Special Edition, and Dare Sea Vegetables, Therapeutic and Culinary Uses of Sea Vegetables, with her co-author, her husband, Didier. The title of her talk today is The Power of Autumnal Now. Welcome, Liliane.
Thank you. Let me see if I can see. Well, I guess I see myself, but I'd like to see everybody. Yes. Okay. So just as a beginning, what I would like to do is actually a little bit of breathing. So if you don't mind sitting up, you're used to that. Sitting up, and there are a couple of things we're going to pay attention to, which of course for you will be quite easy because you do it all the time. We want to make sure that you see those 2 points here are open. Those are lung points. And the fall, the autumn, is the season of the lung. Another thing we want to make sure we do for this particular moment is to get our shoulder blades to get a little bit closer together, to really open. And if it feels uncomfortable, just do it a few times, because again, we have some lung points, and if you get acupuncture and if you get cupping, right, for your lung, if you have a lung problem, the practitioner is going to do cupping along those points. So opening here, getting the shoulder blades, and we do that when we're tired too. We want to, to feel better. So those are ways of stimulating points, lung points, a bit like an acupressure or an auto massage, a self-massage. And so what we're going to do also is breathe deeply and make sure the breath is going down into the abdomen. So think of babies when they're very relaxed and they sleep. You can see their belly going up and down. So what we're going to do first is to breathe in and get our abdomen to feel like a balloon. Breathe out, and you can put your hands on your belly to feel it better if you want. Breathe in, get the belly to fill. Breathe out and bring the abdomen toward the spine. All of this without forcing, ever, naturally, gently. Breathe in, breathe out. The image for that breath is that of a silk thread, thin, soft, strong, silent, like a silk thread. If for any reason, now or at another time when you feel sick, for example, you cannot go down to the abdomen easily, don't force. Just visualize the breath going into the belly and get your belly to move out and in without ever forcing the breath. Breathe in, breathe out. And gently breathe in. As we are getting used to that breath, we might feel it becoming wider in the abdomen, a bit like water that becomes a puddle and can reach the bladder at the very bottom of the abdomen. The prostate or the ovaries, the uterus. And if there's any pain anywhere, any disorder, any discomfort, with your mind, gently bring the breath to that area of discomfort without forcing. Again, it can be just visualizing and trust that slowly as we do this again and again, our breath will know what to do because it already does. Breathe in, belly filling up. Breathe out against the spine, which actually nourishes the kidneys. Breathe in. Breathe out against the spine. Gently. This type of breathing, where the belly fills up with the in-breath, is called natural breathing. That's the one that we should have, that babies have when they're relaxed. The other type of breath, the reverse breathing, is the opposite. We breathe in as the belly comes in, and we breathe out as the belly lets go, like a balloon. So that breath, we're not going to practice that one right now. Just for your information, that one is more yang in nature. the one we're practicing of filling the belly with our breath, is more about relaxation. That's the breath we can use if we feel stressed, worried, or during a bout of insomnia. And you will notice maybe, if you pay attention, that in our world, many of us have a tendency to adopt the reverse breathing as our default breathing. Continue breathing. And as soon as we are rushed, stressed, upset, you might notice how the breath gets caught in the throat or in the chest, how the diaphragm suddenly contracts, and how we don't breathe into the abdomen anymore. A few more times, breathe in, the belly full like a balloon, falling into your hands. Breathe out. The belly contracts against the wall of the back and the spine. Gently. As many of you know from your practice, at the beginning we think we direct the breath, and slowly we start feeling like the breath is breathing us. Do 3 more gentle breaths at your pace. And then, at your own pace, gently come back. All right. So I started with this little session of breathing because it's a breath that's always important, of course, but particularly important for this season. In Taoist medicine, we say that it's the season of the lung and the large intestine. And sometimes I notice, even in discussions with other therapists, that that's the part that we easily forget, the large intestine being part of the lung in Chinese medicine, in Taoist tradition. So basically, we can say that 80%, at least 80% of our colds, infections, bronchitis actually begins in the intestine. And so it's very important to make sure that we cleanse this area. So there are many ways, of course, with food, with maybe some kind of ritual at the beginning of the fall to cleanse the body. But at the very least, or most important, I would say, is with the breath. For example, if, let's say we have a room that feels humid and, a bit like mucus. You have a room that's wet and where there's mold, and what is going to be your first action? What do you want to do? The first thing you do? It's a simple question.
Clean it. Clean it.
Okay, clean it. Okay, but I think there may be even something first that you do. Clean it, yes, of course.
Turn on the fan.
Air it out. Yeah.
Air it out, yeah.
What did you say?
Air it out, open a window.
Yes, open the windows, yes. Let some fresh air come in, all right? And so that's exactly right, because whatever is stuffy too tends to get moldy, and it's the same for our intestines. So when we don't breathe into our intestine, when we don't bring oxygen into our intestine, it means there's too much carbon dioxide, that there's too much mold. And the importance of oxygen, what is the nature of oxygen in chemistry?
Oh, quiz.
With chemistry.
O2.
Well, I'm going to tell you, but I'm sure you know anyway. It is basic. I mean, it is alkaline. So meaning that if we don't breathe into our intestine, into our abdomen enough, we have a tendency to create acidity in our intestinal tract and in our whole system. As you might know, now we call the intestinal tract, we call it the second brain. And it has been discovered or rediscovered recently that there is a nervous system that's totally independent of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system that is called the enteric nervous system. Enteric means basically guts, right? So it's basically we breathe into our abdomen, we help the acidity that tends to accumulate in our system. Of course, stress creates acidic reactions. Stress is acidic. Many of the foods we eat, eating too fast, makes us more acidic. So, and many of the foods we eat or buy today are acidic. Sugar is acidic. So basically, we have our natural cleansing system, and we need to activate it and remember to activate it. So, and again, I know that all of you are practitioners and meditators, so you are used to that breathing. But I know for myself, for example, I remind myself, especially now in this season, to make sure before I go to sleep to relax and breathe into the abdomen. And whenever I start feeling rushed, or, like I went to Paris last weekend, and I got off the train, and there was a huge crowd. I don't know what kind of event was happening, but I could hardly get out. Everybody was waiting to get in. And I was surprised. And for a moment, I had a little, jolt of, I don't know what it was, fear or too much. It was like, oh my God, and such a crowd that I had to go through. And I remembered to check where my breath was. And sure enough, I could tell, I was, my belly had kind of clumped and my breath was there. So before I got down the couple of steps and made sure to get my breath back in the belly and to breathe deeply into the belly before I got through. So that's a little practice that's particularly useful in the fall. I called this, the title I gave also to this little Dharma talk is The Power of Autumnal Now. And that comes actually from a moment I had with a couple of my students not that long ago. Because I teach about food therapy. Many of them, when they see me coming, they kind of feel guilty about what they're eating or drinking. And of course, I mean, that makes me laugh because everything I've learned is from making mistakes. It's not like I'm this wise being who always knew, and everything does cost time and money and effort. But anyway, when they see me and whenever there's, a gathering, it's always the same reaction. It's like, oh, she's coming. So, and they were looking alcohol too at that moment. So it was like, they were feeling a bit embarrassed and they said, yeah, I know we shouldn't, but hey, we live in the present. We need to live in the present. We'll see later. And, it made me laugh, but it's not the first time I hear that kind of thing, from different people or in the family. It's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, maybe it's not so great, but hey, we live in the present. So that got me thinking, and I realized that when we think about, we look at what nature does, and especially in the season, and looking at Chinese medicine too, is like, you know, that wheel of medicine that I always come back to. Chinese medicine or Taoist medicine is really aware or based on interdependence, meaning that we are all the same breath. We all breathe the same energy, and the same thing happens to all living beings within that cycle of energy. So given that, I started thinking, of course, human beings were great at transforming even wisdom into craziness, because of course, being in the present, that's not what that means. But when we look at what happens, especially in the fall, you realize that the present of nature always involves the past and the future. Always. And there's nothing in nature that's done just for the present, meaning the flower that's blooming and it's in all of its glory of present, being of flowering, being a flower, is within itself preparing the next generation and the seeds that are going to fall. I'm thinking of sunflowers in particular. And if we look at autumn in particular, we have everything that's the leaves are falling and they're preparing the soil for the spring. The leaves are going to become the next layer of earth. Everything is always in transformation and recycling. So in nature, there's not that concept of having something just for the moment that we throw away and has no use. You know, dead wood, of course, can be used for fire, but is also used by insects, and it's a whole nurturing that happens all the time. And there is actually a saying in Chinese medicine that says that we harvest each season what we have sown the season before. And of course, it's true of nature, but it's true of our health, meaning the disease that we have today, we have planted the seeds before. And of course, very often we're not aware. It doesn't mean being, guilty. That's really not at all what it is, because sometimes it's also the environment. Again, it's codependent. So, for example, when we all breathe polluted air, we all suffer, okay? And the result is weak lungs, especially in the fall, when we have a tendency to have more bronchitis and colds and lung disorders. But so I was thinking of those, students, and of course I have done the same too. And I can say in my age, which is my fall or getting close to winter, I can see what I did in my youth that I'm harvesting today, the problems that it has caused today. Unfortunately, when we're young, most of the time we don't know or we don't learn. And unfortunately, too, in school, I wish, it was taught as well. So there are young people here in the room. I would say it's great that you are, breathing and learning, because indeed you are planting the seeds of later times. So when we talk about the being in the autumn energy, actually we are preparing the spring, our health in the spring, when we do in winter and in the spring. Again, when we look in nature, and that if we want to plant a tree, fall is a better time to plant a tree than the spring, because if we plant a tree now, October, November, not December, but October, beginning of November, the tree will have deep roots. It's going to work on its abdomen, on its abdominal force, and go deep into the soil to get nutrients. So it's going to be very well rooted. So in the spring is a pretty chaotic season, usually windy ups and downs and rain and wind and beautiful weather and back to frost. It can be pretty chaotic. So it is important for nature to have strong roots. And for us too, meaning that what we do today will help us be less prone to bronchitis and to colds and to epidemics also in the spring. So basically that was my thought, that when we say be in the present or be in the now, it's actually much more subtle and complex than what we usually what is often meant by that. So now is a good time to take care of our rooting. And in that same spirit of preparedness, I might have shared with you that a book I wrote came directly out of COVID and talking to some of my students. I had some calls from students who, at that time, you were not supposed to go see a doctor unless, at least in France, I don't know how it was in Asheville or, in the States, but in France, for a while, at the height of the COVID episode, you could call a doctor, but you couldn't just go. And you were told to weather it any way you could and come only if it got really, really bad, like you couldn't breathe anymore, right? And I had a couple of students who had some pretty intense episodes, and they had been given that advice. And of course, a bit of panic. So what do I do? And I would ask them, do you have this at home? Do you have ginger? Do you have cinnamon? Do you have some essential oils? And again, several of them said no, they had nothing. And they were students in Chinese medicine. So in the book I wrote, I wanted to really understand and see immunity from a more holistic, and I would say from a spiritual outlook. You know what? Our body has immunity, and our immunity is a gift, right? So I wanted to look at it in a different way, but also there is a very practical part in that book where I give even shopping lists to do at the beginning of the fall. That preparedness, the fact, just like in nature, everything is preparing for the next cycle. So all of you here know yourselves and probably know what tends to happen to you during the fall. Are you strong? Do you usually not get colds? Do you have a tendency to be that person who catches everything that comes? Or do you get sick when you get tired? What happens? Is it more usually in the nose, sinuses, in the throat? Is it more in your lung? So it's good to know that and make sure you have at hand what I call emergency kitchen and emergency pharmacy. Because one thing that happens when we are sick is we need to incorporate the fact that usually we have no energy, right? And if we have no energy, we're not going to want to go shopping, and it's not recommended either, because if you go shopping, it can make it worse too. So ideally, I always say that you have about 12 hours at the beginning of a cold. The power of now. You have about 12 hours. Usually, if it's a regular cold, I'm not talking about a viral infection, which we call wind heat. Here I'm going to talk about wind cold. So, you get chilly. You have one day usually where you feel very cold. And at that point, it's important to hear the body. Because if we take care of ourselves when we have that feeling of cold, with a water bottle, so making sure we have that at home. We have maybe some ready-made soups that maybe we bought, dry, freeze-dried or in the freezer that you can reheat, but that you have stuff that you can do, ginger, that you can make a drink with. If you do that day, chances are you're going to wake up you'll be okay. The next day, that's when you start feeling something is off. I'm cold and I can tell something is off if there's still no symptom. And again, at that time, you can still beat it or make it short. If you go further than that, if you miss those 12 hours, 24, but that's pushing it a bit, then you're going to go through the course of the cold. And of course, you can take remedies for that, but it's going to help, but it's not going to stop it. So again, the power of now is actually to be really aware of what's going on in our body and to have anticipated and to have in our kitchen and in our pharmacy what we need. So in terms of prevention, I'm just going to give you a couple of things, for the intestine. For example, if you know you have a tendency to lose stools and often gas, then do 3 weeks of activated charcoal, for example, a good quality activated charcoal to make sure your intestine is cleansed. If you have a tendency to constipation, same, that's not good because you will be prone to colds and bronchitis. So it's a good idea to make sure you have high fiber foods, maybe some, what do we call those seeds in English? I know the word in French. It's a seed. Help me, Tejo, you have it over there.
Psyllium.
No, not psyllium. Psyllium, I mean, some people like it. I find it a bit harsh. I prefer things that are a bit softer. It's not psyllium, but in that same family.
Flax.
Flax, thank you. Flax seeds. That you can grind and make a drink out of or sprinkle on your salad or on your soup, right? But make sure it's fresh because it oxidizes very quickly. So you want to just grind or put what you need. And don't eat it just as is because it won't do anything. You need to grind it or at least to put it in a jar and make it mucilaginous, it becomes kind of like a jelly. And then you can put 1 teaspoon or 1 tablespoon in a soup, and you will enjoy the same benefits. I made a little document, if you want, with some of the good things to do. The kanji that you do at Great Tree, during sesshin in the morning is excellent, especially for fall and winter, because the pathogen of the fall of the lung is actually dryness. Dryness. And well, we'll see. I want to make sure I give you what I want to show you, and after that, maybe I'll ask you if you can understand why the pathogen of the fall and lung is dryness. So making that congee, that soup, that gruel in the morning is very good because you are going to hydrate the body, nourish the body, and you can take care of whatever it is you need. If you use lily bulbs in the congee in the morning or sesame seeds, all of those are good to hydrate the body. You can put herbs like astragalus to stimulate and tonify the immune system. So that's why in Chinese medicine hospitals, that breakfast dish is used as a medicinal meal because they can put the herbs in it that are needed for the case of the person. All right, so let me show you. I'm going to share. So here is a short emergency herbal pharmacy if you want to have a few remedies ready in your pharmacy so that you don't have to go to antibiotics right away or avoid. And of course, you might not be able to have a doctor's appointment very fast anyway. So those are kind of classical formulas that Chinese people have in their pharmacy, just like we have paracetamol and whatever. What is give me the name of a very popular medicine in the States that everybody has.
Tylenol.
Tylenol. All right. Well, you know, at least people who are older, I don't know about young people today in China, but those were kind of the equivalent of their Tylenol. They would have that in their pharmacy. So if you're going to do that, make sure you write on them what they're for and put them apart from the rest of your stuff, because you don't want, if you feel sick, to have to go through everything. So I started with the Jade Screen formula, Yu Ping Feng Tang. That one is especially good for prevention, so to reinforce our immune system. So if you feel a bit tired, a bit weak, you need to go to an event where you know you might easily catch a cold, that's a good thing to start before you go, at least, you know, a few days and ideally a week before you go, before, or you can do a 3-week cycle that you do as you need throughout the winter. And for people who suffer from seasonal allergies, we usually recommend that they start it, if possible, 3 weeks before the start of the allergy season. There's also Chuan Xinlian Gang Yan Pian andrographis formula. You're lucky in Asheville you have Chinese medicine practitioners, so if you tell them that, they will know exactly what it is and help you. And you can find them easily on the internet, and they are, you know, like Golden Needle carries all of those. And so this one is good for sore throat, for infection, antibiotic like. So, you know, again, some people, when they start getting sick, it goes directly to the throat. Okay, and that's usually more wind heat. So, and this formula is really great. There's Bianpian, the nose formula, that's more for sinus infection. You know, when the mucus becomes thick yellow or thick white. But if you start feeling it, you know, with chills, that's a good one to take. And then the last one I gave you is Qingqihua Tantang. It's for, you know, when it falls on the lung with some mucus, yellow or thick mucus or green mucus. These are, you know, it's not that many, but I would say especially those 3. This one is a great preventive one, so of course they are all good, but in terms of essential oils, which you can use, you know, mixed with an oil, it's good to self-massage your whole chest, and if you can have someone do your back, you know, like the points that I indicated before, or with cupping. So the great ones are Ravinsara. And if you feel tired and you need to go somewhere and you're afraid you might catch a cold because you don't feel so great and you know your tendency, then when you go somewhere, put that underneath your feet. Use an essential oil underneath your feet. So Ravinsar, any of those are good. Peppermint, I would keep more for, to open sinuses. But any of those, make sure you mix them with an oil. You can do a massage, an abdominal massage, again, to reinforce the abdominal immune system. So under the feet, abdominal massage, the chest, and if someone can help you, on the back between the shoulder blades along the spine, because you have long points there. Emergency kitchen, I'm just giving you a few tidbits so that you can do your shopping if you don't have it, is to make sure you have spices. And when I say spices, not old spices that don't smell anymore. They will do no good. If your spices are more than 2 years old, replace them. So cinnamon, ginger, cardamom, thyme, all of those are good. Thyme in particular in France is used as a tea, a little bit like a teaspoon of thyme and then hot water, because it will decongest the chest. It will help get rid of mucus in the chest. So all spices and essential oils of those spices are good too. Fall vegetables are great too. So again, if it's a good idea to have a few ready-made soups to anticipate when you start feeling sick, so that you don't have to cook. And basically at the beginning, when you feel that, the important thing is to be able to sweat it out. So you do everything you have to do. You end up with a hot soup with ginger. It can be onions, leeks, because all of those will help the breathing. You go underneath the blankets. And my father, actually, he was the one, he used to like making us a drink when we were sick. And he would put a little bit of wine in it. So that's why he liked preparing it. And we liked it too, needless to say. But I remember that was when I was very young and before antibiotics got so prevalent. And he would say, okay, now you go to bed and you don't uncover your sheets, right? You don't uncover, even if you're hot, you keep covered, because the idea is to sweat it out, okay? When it turns into a fever, it's a bit different. So then we are more into more cooling, like apples, pears, citrus peels. Pears are actually great for the lung too. Herbs that you can put into your morning soup. And I know at Great Tree you're used to that. Jujube. Ginseng is a bit expensive to put in a soup, so forget this one, but you can certainly do a strengthening week of ginseng, for example. Reishi, same, a bit too expensive to put in a soup, but you can take to do for a 1 week or 3 weeks, for example. And things that are really hydrating are goji, sesame seeds, and astragalus. Astragalus is the queen of the fall. Astragalus. So you put it in a little bag or in a clean cloth, because it's wood. It's like wood. So it needs to be soaked beforehand and then put in the congee. And then you take it out because you can't eat it, right? So those are some of the autumnal now, which is being ready for what might happen in the fall. And I was going to to talk a little bit about emotions, but there's no time really. But just know that the fall is a great time to reconnect with our ancestors. So it's a good time to, whatever we do, we don't like, or that we have a tendency to do, but we know our mother, grandmother, whoever, father did, we can offer every success to them when we, let's say we tend to get angry and or cold, and just like our parent, and when we manage to have a success, we can offer it to our ancestors. That's a Taoist practice, actually, to to continue healing through generations. So communication continues, and the fall is said to be the season where the dead and the living are the closest, where the two worlds of the dead and the living are the closest, because you have the out breath from the earth, still warm from the summer, that goes up and creates fog, and then you have the rain or the clouds that come closer. So you can notice that many festivals for ancestors, including All Saints' Day, November 1st, are in the fall. Okay, ancestors rituals. So we can include those, knowing that sadness is said to be the emotion of the fall, and it's not bad. Sadness is neither good nor bad, it's just sadness. It becomes a pathogen when it gets stuck. So that might be a topic for another time, for the emotions, because we don't really have the time to go into that now. But including rituals, whatever speaks to you. And there's a poem by Rumi, and we can finish with that says, "Be like a tree and let the dead leaves drop." So we can all think of what the dead leaves are in the now of autumn for us, and what we can let go of. All right. So this is just to help you with the now of autumn. Do you have any questions?
Oh, yes. Can you send this document to me so I can share it with anyone who wants it?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know the Chinese names can be a little bit dizzying.
Didier Cuzange.
Sorry, there's my phone ringing. I forgot to mute it.
Liliane, I have one question, if I may.
Please.
I've been dealing with some shortness of breath and discomfort in my chest when I'm focused on my breath. And it feels like my heartbeat is really slowing down.
You're
So I
becoming,
guess my question is, do you have any thoughts about that and the connection?
well,
Yeah, the connection between the heart.
of course, yes. It's like, the chest, heart, and lung are close to one another. Emphysema usually ends up with heart problems, and heart problems often create. So, of course, you need to check with your doctor and see if there's anything wrong with that. Sometimes, and it happens a lot, panic attacks can be very similar to that feeling. So what, again, and I'm not giving you at all a diagnostic because I don't know, and you need to check with your doctor. If by any chance it has to do with, some anguish or panic that can come to the surface when we are quiet, then, what we practice at the beginning of not forcing to bring real gentleness, and if feeling out of breath, just observe it and visualize the breath. You don't want to force anything. So, but yes, there is a relationship, of course, between the many people who go to the hospital thinking they have a heart attack actually have a panic attack. So those, the emotions can be very much involved in that, but barring the fact that there's anything physical going on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That answers your question.
And maybe if it's not really a panic attack, could it just be an accumulation of stress?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yes, I'm sorry, I say panic attack. It can have different levels. That's a name, but it can be just, like when we worry, we feel our chest becoming tight, so that's why the practice of bringing the attention to the abdomen can be very helpful, because that's usually what tightens. The diaphragm also tightens, our shoulders tighten. So bringing it down into the abdomen is a good practice. And yeah, yes.
We're out of time, but Liliane, can you say anything about the relationship between grief and the lungs and autumn?
Well, actually, that was a question I had for you. I wanted to ask you why. I have two questions, and if you want, and if Tejo is up for it, we could have a follow-up on this in a few weeks. But I have two questions that I would like you to think about. Is why is the lung connected to the fall and not the spring or the summer afterward? After all, we breathe easily in the summer. And spring, I mean, what inspiration. So why is it that lung is connected to this season? And why is it that grief and sorrow and sadness are the emotions linked to the lung? And third question, why is it that dryness is the pathogen of the lung?
So can you come back November 1st?
November 1st, I'll check. I'll check. That's All Saints Day, isn't it? November 1st, no? But
Yes.
I'd be happy, because I love when people think about that. Sometimes I feel, well, we need to understand it for ourselves. And that's what is the most exciting. So that's kind of your koans, your three koans. And so you're asking the question I wanted to ask you. So if you're up to it, we can have, I can see with Tejo, and we can pick up from here.
So we can be thinking about it for the next few weeks.
Right,
And
right.
on November 1st, we can have that conversation. How about that?
Okay, I'll have to check my schedule to make sure I'm free. I'm not sure I'm free November 1st though, but early November should be possible.
Your sister with thumbs up.
Yeah,
Very
November
skilled, Chris.
1st is not possible, but the following one.
Oh no. November 1st is available. now I have to check my schedule, so I'll get up with you.
Okay, so, yeah,
Okay, the next one, yeah, you could do the next one, because I was gonna do it. I'll do November 1st. Yeah,
Okay. okay. So 3
Mhm.
questions, all right?
Okay. Okay, write the questions down.
Yes, it was dryness. Why the
First,
lungs?
why is the lung and the fall? Lung, large intestine, why is it the fall and not the spring? Why this season? And why are those emotions of sadness, grief linked to the lung?
So what is the title?
Well, we could,
Oh, I got spot.
emotions, emotions of the fall, or emotions of the autumn.
Okay, thank you.
Emotion for the fall.
See, it's your fault though, you brought it up. Yeah, okay.
I'm
So should
glad,
we-
actually, I'm glad.
Should I make announcements
Thank
before?
you. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Liliane. I'm gonna make some announcements for the upcoming week. So this Tuesday, Zen Center of Asheville has their Zazen and Dharma talk, and their speaker will be Meredith McIntosh on the Alexander technique. So if you're curious about that, she's a fabulous practitioner. You should check that out.
Only in person too.
in
so
person,
She'll
yeah.
might do a little hands-on.
Yeah. Next Saturday, Reverend Chimio Atkinson is going to be speaking, and the title of her Dharma talk is Connect. That Sunday, the 19th, is also our Intro to Zen class, which is on Zoom only. And then I also wanted to advertise the next session that's on November 7th through 12th. So if you're interested in signing up for that session, you can send me an email and I'll give you the information. But yeah, that's what we have.
May the merit of this practice
May the merit of this practice
benefit all beings
benefit all beings
and bring peace.
and peace.